Patsy Robertson, we have Neha Diwan, and we have myself. We are now live on Zoom and YouTube. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen from London. Greetings to you all across the globe. Hope you're all keeping safe in these difficult times and well. My name is Uday Nagaraju. I am co-founder and executive president of Global Policy Insights and the project director of the Commonwealth project. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all to the launch of this e-series, the Commonwealth Optimizing Networks and Opportunities for the 21st Century, jointly conducted by Global Policy Insights and the Ramphal Institute through this e-symposium. Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Baroness Patricia Scotland, will launch this e-series through her keynote address. In terms of today's agenda, there will be a brief introduction by me about global policy insights, followed by a welcome note by Patsy Robertson, chair of Ramphal Institute, followed by a brief introduction of GPI's The Commonwealth Project by Neha Diwan. Then it's the keynote address by the Secretary General Baroness Scotland, followed by a few questions that we have received, depending on time. If anyone wants to ask any questions, they can tweet to @globalpolicyin. And finally, a vote of thanks. So let's begin. Global Policy Insights, or GPI, is an international public policy think tank operating out of London, Washington, DC, and New Delhi, researching models of governance, political economy, and policies aimed at accelerating socio-economic growth at the local, national, and international levels. And we do that by bringing a strong network of engagement, by building a strong network of engagement between governments, corporates, academics, and professional communities. Our key focus areas include international trade and economics, international strategic studies, governance and policy, artificial intelligence and technology, and sustainable development. There are some key projects that we work on, and one of the key projects that we work on is the Commonwealth project. The Commonwealth project, which is a key project as mentioned, brings into discussion the revised and reinvigorated role of Commonwealth, and also makes efforts to strengthening these networks. Our first event in December 2018, a seminar on Brexit, UK, and Commonwealth, triggered a discussion in the UK Parliamentary Question Hour on international trade. My colleague Neha will expand on this a bit later. Other projects that we are working on are artificial intelligence policy labs, or AI policy labs. We have an in-house interdisciplinary backgrounds and skills in technology and public policy. Leveraging on those skills, we have come up with artificial intelligence policy labs and a linked artificial intelligence and public policy program, which looks at international governance on AI, utilizing AI for policy design, formulation, and implementation. Essentially, we would like to explore models of using AI for public goods and for social good. We're also keen to understand how Commonwealth family, the family of nations, can leverage on technology and AI in addressing the challenges of 21st century. We also have regular podcasts, interviews, and articles on a range of global issues on international political economy and governance, and also on sustainable development goals, on topical issues with experts from all walks of life throughout the world. Then another area that we work on is a UK-India program. As a think tank committed to international cooperation, we have facilitated collaborations between regional governments of India and organizations here, and also the governmental bodies here, through events, partnerships, and collaborations in the field of education, youth, and trade. Coming to the current e-series, this e-series is a joint initiative of two organizations, Global Policy Insights and the Ramphal Institute, both dedicated to the working of Commonwealth. Now, the e-series talks about the challenges of 21st century. The current pressing issue of COVID-19, as you all know, has affected billions of lives across the globe. Death toll has crossed 300,000 with a drastic impact on health and economy. The complexity and the uncertainty around the issue and the virus makes it unresolvable at national levels and presses the need more than ever for a stronger international cooperation. Commonwealth, the family of 54 nations, could provide that platform. Just a few days ago, there's been a great development under the leadership of the Secretary General Baroness Scotland, where Commonwealth health ministers agreed to share advice and solutions in coronavirus battle. I'm sure the SG will expand more on this in her keynote address. This e-series looks at the context of broader 21st century challenges in general, and COVID-19 being the current one, and examines some key questions. How has the pandemic affected Commonwealth nations, particularly smaller states, island nations, and developing economies? How can this body channel the youth, technology, entrepreneurship, education, peace and diplomacy, good governance and human rights among a plethora of areas of expertise? Is there an exceptionalism in the experience of Commonwealth as compared to those nations outside of it? And most importantly, what is the role of Commonwealth in the 21st century? Given the COVID-19 crisis, what can Commonwealth do, given its present mandate and influence? We aim to bring together global decision makers, political and social leaders, scholars and experts, including across a range of fields, including medicine, technology, artificial intelligence, social sciences, among others, to bring the conversation on Commonwealth, optimizing networks and opportunities for the 21st century. This series will feature panel discussions, podcasts, and reports. So as this is a joint initiative by GPI and the Ramphal Institute, I would now like to introduce and invite Chair of Ramphal Institute and a friend, Patsy Robertson, to speak on behalf of the Ramphal Institute. A brief background of Patsy. Patsy served numerous roles in Commonwealth, Director of Information of Commonwealth Secretariat, official spokesperson of Commonwealth 1983 to 1994, and also senior media advisor for the Fourth World Conference on Women and Beijing Plus 5. And she also worked with UNICEF and the UN General Assembly Special Session in the 1990s. So Patsy Robertson, over to you, Patsy.
Thank you very much, Uday. My main task, first of all, is to give the warmest possible welcome to our Secretary General. Secretary General, we are delighted that you have agreed to join us because we think this is a very important initiative. And we hope that people from all over, not only in the Commonwealth, but all over the world will be tuning in to listen to what we have to say. I will talk a little bit about the Ramphal Institute at the end, but I would like to place our meeting in context as well as I can. As you are aware, the recent COVID-19 global pandemic has illuminated an important but frequently overlooked feature of our Commonwealth, that it is not the convening power of the networks, but the convening power of its inter-organizational network of networks. The difference is not a matter of hierarchy, but one of potential impact in terms of performance and bearing. To understand this point, I would just like to speak about this hierarchy. At its highest level, as you know, sits the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And beneath that are members, our meetings with all the governmental officials, the ministers. Then there are the Parliamentary Association, Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, Commonwealth organizations which look after the cities, health, etc., etc. We have had this for years. It's part of our DNA to consult, to reach out, but to do that at a level which includes governments in particular. Now, they are significant by any measure because of the numbers. Their membership now runs into hundreds. Their collective voices demand a hearing, and their funding parallels, in a few cases, surpasses that of your own secretariat. The Ramphal Institute is an integral part of this linkage. The Institute was founded at a time when the Commonwealth was changing, that it had reached a stage where it had gone through the huge task of ending racism in Southern Africa, and it was moving into the realization that it could not just be a secretariat-led organization, that it had to reach out to all the other groupings, ministers, teachers, the NGOs everywhere. And we have worked to encourage this in our small way. We have put on meetings on such matters as migration and development, still a huge problem for the Commonwealth. We have done another big report on state of the toxic cities. We have some of the most toxic cities in the world in the Commonwealth. And we are proceeding perhaps to publish a book which encompasses some of the results of that conference and will involve experts in air pollution and join the rest of the world in fighting to make clean air a United Nations human right. So there's a big agenda, and we are very happy that we can work with you on this. However, this symposium, which is focusing on organizing these Commonwealth networks and opportunities for the 21st century, is timely. I feel it is timely. And we hope it will stimulate further thinking around the challenges for collective action that can be overcome by the Commonwealth harnessing this remarkably unique network. It is a remarkable network. We pride ourselves in the Iran Institute that we have a growing history of working in the interstitial spaces of the Commonwealth, fomenting dialogue around emerging and global issues that impact the Commonwealth's development, that we can make a small contribution to the work that you are doing. I know that you have reached out, you have embraced the new world of technology, which has made such a difference, ease of communication, bringing people together, and that we hope that we can continue to work with you and with our other colleagues in the non-governmental sectors all over the Commonwealth. We will continue to function in this role as the kind of synapse, to coin an expression, strengthening the relationships between the different rungs of the hierarchy of Commonwealth networks, while engendering fresh dialogue on current and Commonwealth issues. Secretary General, I've just made these remarks just to thank you so much for participating. I know you're working a lot already in this field, but both Uday and I felt that we could add a dimension to supporting your work in bringing the Commonwealth into the 21st century.
Great. Thank you, Patsy. Thanks for your wonderful message. And I would now like to introduce and invite a young scholar from GPI, Neha Diwan, the project lead of the Commonwealth project, to explain briefly on GPI's Commonwealth project. Neha is a non-resident fellow and a political affairs officer at Global Policy Insights. As a project director of Commonwealth, I regularly interact with Neha on almost all aspects of the project, and she's the academic person on this project as well. Neha, over to you.
Thank you, Uday. It is a great honor to be leading the Commonwealth project at GPI, the impetus really behind the special series in partnership with the Ramphal Institute. The modern Commonwealth is a veritable embodiment of freedom, democracy, development, and progress. One of the oldest political associations, this historically significant institution now stands at a membership of 54 equal and independent nations working collectively for a better future for all of us. Its 80 and more multi-pronged international and local partners act together and influence institutions that directly impact the lives of individuals across the globe. In the context of shifting nuances of the 21st century, political realliances, perennial challenges, and now an unprecedented global crisis, the Commonwealth project at GPI raises a fundamental question. What is the role of the Commonwealth in the 21st century, given its present mandate and influence? How can the networks of the Commonwealth be optimized to reinvigorate opportunities and strengthen the Commonwealth system? intended to reconceptualize the global understanding of the modern Commonwealth in the forthcoming years, we follow a multi-layer approach to examine specialized areas from trade and economic calculations, institutional workings, sustainable democratic practices to strategic politics, while supporting parliamentary democracies, effective decision-making, and good governance principles. This project starts an informed and exigent conversation on the intimate multi-level and multilateral relationships built through the networks of the Commonwealth. The project, launched in late 2018, subsumes three areas, titled as the Speaker Series, working with parliamentarians across the regions of the Commonwealth, including our work and our seminars at the British Parliament, the High Commission series, and the Leaders of the Commonwealth series, representing a collective of academics, diplomats, young professionals, businesses, and other sectors working with us to bring the Commonwealth in dialogue. Collaborating with global leaders and institutional partners, we envision the culmination of this project as a strategic study in the upcoming year. Through the launch of our special series today, we wish to channel the collective expertise and experiential advantages of the Commonwealth to tackle both the unprecedented challenges that COVID-19 presents and those that this pandemic has uncovered now. We bring together leaders in discussion about the future of the Commonwealth and as a corollary of the world in its current transitions. In this key milestone for the Commonwealth project, we're extremely humbled and honored today by the presence of the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, whose office and personal vision embody and represent a commitment to the Commonwealth like never before. Thank you. The floor is back to you, Uday.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to introduce and invite someone who doesn't need introduction, Baroness Patricia Scotland herself. Baroness Scotland was born in Dominica and she moved to UK with her parents as a child. She is the first woman to hold the post of Secretary General in Commonwealth and also is the second person from Caribbean to hold the role of Commonwealth Secretary General. She's the first Black woman to be appointed to the Queen's Council back in 1991, and that was at the age of 35, and who was also the youngest woman to be made a QC. Also appointed as Attorney General in 2007, she was the first woman to hold that post since it was created back in 1300s. In her various roles that she undertook, she brought major reform of the criminal justice system, including the introduction of domestic violence crime and also the Victims Act. May I now request the Honorable Secretary General, Baroness Scotland, to launch the E-Series through her keynote address.
Well, firstly, can I say thank you so much for inviting me. I am so proud to be able to join you today and to add my voice to those who wish to know a little more about comity and how the Commonwealth can come together. And I want to take this opportunity, if I may, to thank GPI and the Ramphal Institute for all you are doing to illuminate the issues which are of such critical importance to us today, not least if we think about what's happening right at this very moment, where we have not only the coronavirus, but we have seen the storms that happened in the Pacific, and now we have in Asia the enormous disruption that's coming as a result of the most recent cyclone. And yet we have locusts, and we have drought, and we have flooding, and we look with anxiety as to what will or may happen in the Caribbean at the start of the hurricane season. So I am very pleased to be able to be with you, and perhaps just talk about a little bit in terms of where we have gone, where we are now, and where we probably need to go to. Now, literally a few weeks ago, we celebrated Commonwealth Day. And as we always do on the second Tuesday in March, it was a really uplifting occasion and gave us a lively visual expression of the many beneficial realities which are the result of our Commonwealth connection. it barely seems credible that then on the 9th of March, we had hardly begun to comprehend the many ways in which our world was about to change, or that globally we were at an historic point of inflection. So the title of this symposium refers to the 21st century, a fifth of which has already passed. The remaining 80 years are almost certainly going to be very different from the first 20. And yet the Commonwealth, prescient and perceptive as always, is well prepared and well positioned to provide multilateral leadership in what we can expect to be the new normal. It has been observed that while created in the 20th century, the Commonwealth is ideally suited to the 21st century, and I would say the 22nd. We can now reflect that during the first 20 years of the 21st century, the Commonwealth was aligning and equipping itself and its members to focus on the challenges of the remaining 80. When we refer to our common future, as we do in the current Commonwealth theme, it is in the context of a very different reality that we must now think. Our Commonwealth ways of working together inclusively and freely on a basis of mutual respect enables us swiftly to adapt to new circumstances and to evolve organically in response to the changing needs. And this is now more true than ever. And the Commonwealth can make a very special global contribution by shining as a beacon for multilateralism. So let me go back and quote from my Commonwealth Day message of only a few weeks ago. The words seem to me to be appropriate to the theme of this e-symposium. I said this: as social creatures, human beings develop and make progress by living, learning, working, and playing together in communities. We share experience and learn from what those around us do. By emulating what we admire, we can in turn inspire others through our own example and achievement. The Commonwealth, through its interconnected networks, sustains a vibrant ecosystem of opportunity for us to do this on a scale that is vast and global, yet very human in expression. Our great strength as a family of nations and peoples growing together organically is our ability to evolve and adjust to changing circumstances, whether in the field of human rights, democracy, or trade. We see such adaptation in the natural world, and it is just as necessary in the technological world and for fruitful cooperation amongst nations and in local communities. So the current focus of thinking and action and by the Commonwealth is on delivering a common future, connecting, innovating, transforming. So that was then. We are more aware than ever before how what any single country does can affect, for good or ill, the well-being of our entire world and the welfare of everyone with whom we share it. Those words were part of my message for Commonwealth Day 2.5 months ago. The reference to how we are all so closely connected and interdependent was an acknowledgement that the impact of the coronavirus pandemic was beginning to be understood. It also acknowledges our continuing Commonwealth recognition of the many ways in which the realities of climate change and of economic instability and exclusion are affecting the well-being and safety of people and the sustainability of the countries and communities in which they live. Since Commonwealth Day, the rapid spread of the coronavirus epidemic and its multiple impacts has indeed demonstrated to us with deadly and distressing clarity how closely we are interconnected as humankind. The escalation of the virus from local origin to widespread, worldwide, catastrophic conditions has happened with startling speed. There have seldom, if ever, been times in the history of humanity when we have been more aware of our connectedness and our interdependence. So it is ironic that as we focus on delivering a common future, we are, as individuals, having to self-isolate, and that countries and communities are having to erect barriers to travel and to curtail trade. But there is far more to the current crisis than that. To defeat coronavirus, to survive, and once again to flourish, we have to work together. This means connecting, innovating, and transforming the way we do things. We have to learn from each other, support one another, overcome vulnerability, and build resilience. That is how the nations of the Commonwealth have worked together, prospered, and developed over many decades. Advances in ICT and improvements in bandwidth mean that Commonwealth connectivity is continuing to function remarkably well and to bring together the creativity which abounds in our member countries, particularly pivotal and innovative contributions by our young people. It is helping us to pioneer new ways to cooperate, to develop and deliver the technical and administrative advances that are needed now more urgently than ever. And this means supporting healthcare policy and planning for immediate needs and for the longer term. It means mobilizing funding and economic resources and sharing expertise to help all, particularly the most marginalized and more vulnerable, to survive the unpredictable stresses and strains of stormy financial markets. So through these times of great turbulence and trouble, of anxiety and apprehension, we must strengthen rather than turn away from the multilateral methodologies and mechanisms amongst which the Commonwealth has long been a pioneer and an exemplar. In navigating our way towards what we devoutly hope will soon be calmer and safer waters, we approach with utmost seriousness and collective Commonwealth determination the needs of each and every one of our member countries. So, for example, the Commonwealth Secretariat has already implemented the necessary IT infrastructure to support virtual meetings and events as we are through this e-symposium. I think we've had more than 1,000 meetings through this medium. This reduces costs and facilitates remote working, enhancing the meeting experience for those joining online from any of our member countries. Now, multi-channel communications and platforms enable secure communications and online engagement from high and low bandwidth environments. They also support and promote co-creation and sharing of innovative ideas, enabling us to maintain delivery in really challenging circumstances. And at present, this includes assistance with access to pharmaceuticals and protocols for maximizing access to healthcare. We're also supporting member countries with vital aspects of debt management as budgets are revised to cope with huge unforeseen demands. The very name Commonwealth, meaning our common weal or our common good, speaks powerfully of our collective concern for the lives and the livelihoods of others as well as ourselves, of their well-being and their welfare, for their health as well as their wealth. In times such as these, we need the Commonwealth to shine and show the way as a powerful influence for good. The 54 member countries of the Commonwealth cooperate and provide mutual support to one another in accordance with a set of shared values and aspirations, at the heart of which commitment to democracy and development. The opening words of our charter are very telling. They read, "We, the people of the Commonwealth." That understanding of what the Commonwealth is and how it connects and cooperates and continues to flourish and have meaning and impact is really important. It is rooted in the recognition that we connect far more deeply and extensively than simply at intergovernmental level. Vitally important, though that level of connection and collaboration is. And I was so grateful that this was a matter that Patsy touched on in her remarks. The organic connection of institutions, of communities, of people of all ages and backgrounds, drawn from the many traditions of faith and philosophical wisdom, is what creates the vibrancy and distinctiveness of our sense of belonging together. Our shared values and our principles draw much from the shared inheritances and historical connection, and they continue to develop and have meaning because of the mutual respect and understanding. There is real determination that the fruits of social and economic development and deepening democracy should be enjoyed inclusively by all. And this has resulted in iterative declarations of Commonwealth commitment to shared values and goals. Incrementally and dynamically, our shared understanding and consensual commitment has grown. We see it in the London Declaration of 1949, which brought into being the Commonwealth as we know it today. In it, the leaders of our 8 founding members declared that the countries they represented would, and I quote, "remain united as free and equal members of the Commonwealth of Nations, freely cooperating in the pursuit of peace, liberty, and progress." This vision was expressed eloquently in the words of Pandit Nehru when in 1949 he said, "We join the Commonwealth, obviously because we think it is beneficial to us and to certain causes in the world that we wish to advance. The other countries of the Commonwealth want us to remain because they think it is beneficial to them." The Commonwealth is a method, a desirable method, and a method that brings a touch of healing with it. In this world, which is today sick and which has not recovered from so many wounds inflicted in the last decade or more, it is necessary that we touch upon the world problems, not with passion and prejudice and with too much repetition of what has ceased to be, but in a friendly way and with a touch of healing. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who became head of the Commonwealth in 1952, expressed similar visionary sentiments of noble idealism and common humanity when in 1953 she said of the Commonwealth, "It is an entirely new conception, built on the highest qualities of the spirit of man, friendship, loyalty, and the desire for freedom and peace." With more members achieving independence and being welcomed as sovereign members during the 1950s and 1960s, The Singapore Declaration of the Commonwealth Principles was adopted in 1971 at the first gathering of our heads to be designated as a Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. This was built on further by heads of government with the Harare Commonwealth Declaration of 1991, and again in 2009 in Trinidad and Tobago with the affirmation of Commonwealth values and principles. And it is so good that we have those with us today who remember those days and who were there personally. There had also been the adoption in 2004 of the Latimer House Principles, which govern issues such as the harmonious balancing of power and the interaction between Parliament, the executive, and the judiciary in democratic societies. They set out in detail the consensus arrived at by the representatives of the three branches of government in the Commonwealth on how each of their national institutions should interrelate in the exercise of their institutional responsibility. Then in 2012, following the recommendation of the Eminent Persons Group, chaired by the former Prime Minister of Malaysia, Abdullah Badawi, that after wide consultation in member countries, the Charter of the Commonwealth was adopted. I set out this historical timeline to show the continuing and dynamic development of the Commonwealth, understanding and commitment by our member nations. It also shows the ability and the readiness of the Commonwealth to evolve and to adapt to new circumstances. And indeed, that in the first 20 years of the 21st century, very considerable progress and positive change have already taken place. COVID-19 impresses upon us the tremendous value of those continuing and distinctive Commonwealth characteristics of agility and responsiveness to the needs of member countries. This includes urgent action on universal health coverage, which is vital for the related areas of economic and social inclusion, and possible only if national vulnerabilities are addressed and greater international attention paid to building sustainable infrastructure and financial resilience. Over recent weeks, the dedication to duty of healthcare professionals and those who work alongside them has been simply extraordinary. Sadly, for many, this has on occasion meant risking their own health and that of their families. This is not a choice that anyone working in healthcare should have to make. More coordinated responses are needed, with more effective planning and mobilization of resources. And this is where Commonwealth cooperation and advocacy are of such importance. And it is encouraging to see an impressive range of initiatives and innovative approaches. These include the COVID Shield, which is a self-isolation and quarantine monitoring and tracking system with artificial intelligence-driven self-health monitoring, which is being led by the Commonwealth Medical Association. Continuing innovation and community engagement will really help us to build on the success of such initiatives and ensure there are more widespread adoption of these technologies. Our Commonwealth concern for none to be left behind motivates us to find ways of ensuring there is equitable distribution of resources and access to technologies. We do so by providing support and encouragement from inventors and innovators, particularly for the young people of the Commonwealth, to scale up their pioneering ideas, especially in the field of health. Amongst examples that are of particular relevance to the coronavirus epidemic is the work of Rayvon Stewart, a young man from Jamaica. Rayvon has developed a door handle sanitizer to help medical facilities, businesses, school project people from deadly microorganisms that are so easily passed from hand to hand. Another example is Nitesh Kumar Jangir, who is a young innovator and entrepreneur from India. Nitesh was one of the winners last year of my Commonwealth Secretary General's Innovation for Sustainable Development Awards. His innovation, SANS, is a neonatal breathing support device for low resource settings with multiple powering options. It maintains respiration and oxygenation in premature neonates with respiratory distress syndrome by providing constant airflow and pressure to keep the lungs open. We know that many across the Commonwealth have insufficient number of neonatal organizations and facilities. So this is a remarkable contribution. And we can make encouragement and take huge pleasure from ideas such as these, which are so visionary and yet so practical. The 1.4 billion younger people in our Commonwealth are remaking the world every day in all parts of our Commonwealth. They are doing great things in cities, in suburbs and shanty towns, in island communities and isolated rural settlements, high tech, low tech, or no tech. The young people of the Commonwealth truly are delivering our common future. And when we speak of challenges and chances and of reinvigorating the purpose of the Commonwealth in the 21st century, as in the theme given to me for this address, it is principally to young people that we must look. And their vision is indeed bold, their horizons are broad, and their achievements are already impressive. So reimagining and refreshing are all part of the reinvigoration and go hand in hand with the continuing reform and renewal, which are institutional priorities for the way we work and conduct our affairs. We are now less than 10 years away from the 2030 target date of the Agenda for Sustainable Development. Recent weeks have taught us how economic development and social progress are closely and inextricably bound up with the provision and sustainability of strong health systems. And it's a hard lesson, and the shockwaves will reverberate widely for years to come. Yet we also see added impetus for the development and use of innovative approaches and technologies. In this, the contributions of civil society and organizations and community engagement will be pivotal. As the Commonwealth family, we have connections and capacity to lead, especially advocacy and coordination. And above all, we must ensure that inequalities amongst and within health systems are addressed and overcome rather than being exacerbated. So strengthening health systems and ensuring the universal health coverage is provided for all is vital to fulfilling that commitment and that ambition. So at this extraordinarily challenging time for us all, I emphasize and re-emphasize the importance and value of Commonwealth solidarity. The collected wealth of expertise and resources made available by and through Commonwealth organizations is a precious resource and a very practical support for our Commonwealth member countries as they grapple with the shocking impacts of the pandemic. In this context, I would like to commend the Commonwealth organizations that have so generously responded to our call and are offering assistance to Commonwealth countries through the Coronavirus Response Centre that we have set up on our Commonwealth Innovation Platform. It includes the Commonwealth Coronavirus Tracker, collating data from all Commonwealth countries and the World Health Organization, with infographics and trend analysis showing the trajectory as COVID-19 spreads and takes its toll. This reveals very graphically the grave and dangerous reality of the pandemic for our member countries. The Coronavirus Tracker identifies risks, gaps, and key areas where the Commonwealth can add value in supporting the fight against COVID-19 and is designed to provide data-driven insights to help policymakers and key decision makers in Commonwealth countries plan, respond, to the pandemic. And we see imperative it is for Commonwealth to cooperate and mobilize to do all we possibly can to overcome this crisis. And that is why in March, I convened a virtual meeting of senior health officials, regional bodies, and civil society from right across the Commonwealth. Then last week, as you know, we held our first ever virtual ministerial meeting, the Commonwealth Health Ministers Meeting. At these gatherings, member countries exchanged perspectives on the current and the projected impact of the pandemic on national health systems and the strategies being implemented in response. We were made freshly aware of the gaps there are in supply chains for small countries, including the difficulties they encounter in obtaining pharmaceuticals and other essential healthcare supplies. Even before the pandemic struck, we had been busy at the Commonwealth Secretariat developing strategies for pooled procurement of essential medicines. Indeed, I had presented proposals at the 2019 Commonwealth Health Ministers meeting to the proposed modalities for this core price sharing and pooled procurement platform. And they were being developed urgently as part of our Commonwealth's response and action to support our member countries. Our goal is for important information on essential health supplies, drugs, tests, and equipment that are necessary to combat COVID-19 to be made available and shared right across the Commonwealth. The global extent and extraordinary scale of the problem demands a global response and extraordinary measures. We have long experience in the Commonwealth of standing shoulder to shoulder in troubled and testing times, and of working together in a spirit of mutual support and goodwill. And we can help to show the wider world how differences can be overcome or put aside for the greater common good. The swiftness of our responses and the choices we make together will have a tremendous and transformational effect on how soon we are able to recover, socially and economically, and to rebuild and renew our communities and our countries with greater resilience. So I'm particularly keen that as the Commonwealth, we should develop practical interventions in response to the ongoing crisis, which will both immediate and long-lasting impacts. This means enhancing digital connectivity and online delivery of information resources and services, including through e-learning and e-health. Such capabilities can do much to help mitigate the direct and indirect effects of COVID-19 in our member countries. In particular, and as it always does, our Commonwealth focus turns to the most vulnerable and least resilient. This means redoubling our collective efforts in support of our member countries that are most in need. It also elevates our concern and our action to support older people who are most at risk from COVID-19 and who are also particularly susceptible during this time of increased economic pattern strain and social isolation. In many of our member countries, changing living and working patterns deprive aging people of the networks of support from family and close community which have sustained and supported them in the past. This increases vulnerability and adds to loneliness, and these factors add to anxiety at a time when healthcare systems and other provision to which they might turn for assistance are already overloaded. So we must therefore act to fill gaps and to mobilize mechanisms for ensuring that the needs of all older people are met. And the majority of older people globally live in lower and middle income countries, which is how many of our Commonwealth member countries are categorized. So research by the Commonwealth Association for Aging, Common Age, and the Oxford Institution of Population Aging indicates that in the majority of Commonwealth countries, the absolute size of the older population will increase by at least 100% over the next 25 years, a far greater rise than in general the case globally. So to be true to our inclusive approach and ethos, the Commonwealth has a special responsibility to show the way and to take a lead in upholding the importance, attending to the needs and concerns of older people, particularly where they live in countries or communities which lack the human, financial, and technical resources to cope during the present global crisis and its aftermath. It is particularly important for us to focus on the need for intergenerational connection and mutual support. Our Commonwealth understanding is that all can give and all can gain. And this is true of countries and communities. It's also true of people of whatever age or background. And if we needed to see that, we could only need to remember the contribution made by Captain Tom, now Sir Tom, having been recently knighted by Her Majesty the Queen. So we must be alert and respond to the needs of each person and confront attitudes or approaches which tend to discriminate on grounds of age wherever and whenever they occur. This is particularly important in relation to the distressing increase in domestic violence and violence against women and girls. 1 in 3 women worldwide are victims of sexual or physical violence in their lifetime. Yet because of the impunity, the silence, the stigma, the fear and shame, the abuse remains largely unreported. It affects everyone, women, men, children, persons with disabilities, and people from sexual and gender minorities. So to tackle this scourge in our member countries, the Commonwealth Secretariat recently established a new partnership and signed an MOU with the No More Foundation. We are working together to implement initiatives that work on the prevention of domestic violence and sexual abuse as part of the wider efforts to achieve the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. The social and economic aspects of development are closely interrelated and interdependent, and of course, are increasingly dependent on digital capacity. So our Commonwealth connectivity agenda, agreed at CHOGM 2018, is of enormous significance, particularly as it relates to digital infrastructure, digital skills, e-commerce, and e-government services. We also see immense potential for digital technologies to boost intra-Commonwealth trade, which is now more important than ever for small states in view of the daunting challenges being faced by so many of their principal areas of business and commerce. Our debt management technical assistance program provides crucial services to member countries, and with new updated software and renamed Commonwealth Meridian, this facility now enables us to offer very considerable enhanced assistance to Commonwealth countries on strengthening debt management capabilities. We're also delivering a fintech training program in collaboration with 2 world-class universities and together with Commonwealth Fintech Toolkit. These will help to build enhanced capacities in developing country members and facilitate much needed diversification of their economies. We've also launched Kuburi, the COVID-19 Business Law Response Initiative, a project through which expert lawyers work pro bono on in-depth research and produce draft legislative provisions for member countries. This project is being delivered by the Commonwealth Office of Civil and Criminal Justice Reform, which I established to support our member countries with delivering access to justice and sustainable development through the creation of fair and effective national laws. The office draws together good legislation and methods of working from Commonwealth jurisdictions and makes available model laws and helps to reform legal systems. We continue to see small states in particular being disproportionately affected both by economic and environmental shocks, yet access to emergency and concessional funds for many of our member states is restricted as a result of their levels of income per capita. At the Commonwealth Secretariat, we continually devise, develop and upgrade programs which respond to our Commonwealth members' needs, with special attention always paid to those which are smaller and more vulnerable. An example of this is our development of a disaster risk financing portal to assist countries in navigating access to funds on offer. And we are currently expanding the scope of this provision to include assistance with access to financing for all types of disaster, including for aspects of the current health pandemic. We also have our Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub, which helps countries to untangle the red tape around climate financing and with making successful applications to the international funds that address climate change. National advisors are deployed to long-term positions in government environmental departments and agencies and in regional bodies such as the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center in Belize. Collegiately, these experts are creating a pan-Commonwealth network that is managed through a hub in Mauritius. The hub builds on long-standing and pioneering Commonwealth engagement to address climate change since the adoption of the Langkawi Declaration on Environment in 1989. Already, that hub has enabled more than $33.5 million worth of assistance to go to our member states, but there is more than $500 million worth of projects in the pipeline. And so help is really on its way in a very concrete, tangible form. So too has the work that we're doing on Commonwealth Blue Charter helped many of our countries. Through it, our member countries work together on fair, inclusive, and sustainable approaches to ocean protection and economic development. The areas of cooperation include coral reef protection and restoration, mangrove ecosystems and livelihoods, marine protected areas, sustainable aquaculture, sustainable coastal fisheries. So building on the success of this collaboration, we are now working to develop a Commonwealth call for action on living lands, which we're referring to as the Commonwealth Call. Unsustainable land use leads to the destruction or degradation of soils, forests, and biodiversity. This exacerbates the damaging impacts of climate change. So our proposal through Commonwealth Call is to focus on sustainable land use, and in particular, areas such as food security, water, livestock, and indigenous knowledge. Collectively and individually, the nations of the Commonwealth certainly face many challenges, and there are also many opportunities to be seized, and immense potential has yet to be tapped. Going back to where I began, with the topic set out for this address, perhaps it is not so much that we need to reinvigorate the purpose of the Commonwealth, but rather that there needs to be greater understanding and appreciation of what the Commonwealth is continuing to deliver as an exemplary expression of multilateral cooperation. This would be my message, as well as immense gratitude to all the many colleagues and counterparts who are making it possible for such imaginative and innovative fulfillment of the unfolding vision of our great family, governments and peoples. So I repeat the words of our current Commonwealth theme: delivering a common future, connecting, innovating, transforming. We carry forward in these daunting times the flame kept alight and passed to us by those who guarded it in dark days of years gone by. Always we look and work for a brighter future. And we know that we shall reach horizons of hope more surely and more swiftly with the mutual encouragement and support and strength which come from solidarity. I believe we have never needed that solidarity more. But through that solidarity, I also believe we will, like the generations before us, reach a stage where our children look back and say they are proud that this generation did their duty and stuck together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Baroness Scotland. On behalf of everyone at the event, thank you for the insights. I'm sure everyone now has a much better understanding of how we can deal with the 21st century challenges. I particularly like the theme of connecting, innovating, and transformating, which kind of appeals to and brings in the young people, the aspect of young people as well, which is very much linked to the innovations. So once again, thank you. We have received many questions regarding this topic. I think we might still have time for 2 to 3 questions. Neha has been compiling these. Neha, can I bring you on for these questions, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Uday. And of course, thank you immensely, Baroness Scotland, for really reminding us that the spirit of the Commonwealth is in the potential of its people, over 2.4 billion people that it encompasses. So we have a compendium of questions here. And just to begin with the first one, Madam Secretary General, the first question is that, of course, the pandemic is challenging systems worldwide, but it has a disproportionately large effect on small states and developing economies, as you mentioned as well. But in a context where larger economies and actors are taking a hands-off approach or an inwards-looking approach, how do you see these economies, especially developing economies of the Commonwealth, emerging from the COVID-19 crisis? And can this be seen as an opportunity for the Commonwealth to sweep into the vacuum and shape the post-COVID world order?
Well, I think this is a critically important point because, as you know, of the 54 countries of the Commonwealth, 32 are small states. And historically, the Commonwealth has always been the voice of the small states. We are facing an extraordinary period where there is an intersection of 3 things. One, of course, is this pandemic, but the second is climate change and the climate crisis that we are facing right now. And the small states are facing an existential threat from this climate crisis. The third, of course, is the economic consequences of what we have been through. So the Commonwealth is peculiarly well placed to speak on, to protect, and to advance the position of these small states because there are only 39 small states in the world and 32 are within the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth family has also had a history of looking after one another. It's not surprising, as I mentioned, that it was in Langkawi in 1989, that's 31 years ago, that the Commonwealth was the first intergovernmental group to say the crisis, the climate crisis was coming and that it did pose that existential threat. So what does that mean? If you look at the work that we've been doing as a Commonwealth family, certainly since 2015, when we recognize that the Commonwealth has a 19% advantage when it comes to trading with each other, because we have the same common language, same common law, same common institutions, and same sort of government process. But then after 2015, when we discovered that 19%, and we then went on to continue to work, by 2017, we identified that we were trading with each other 20% more than we trade with everyone else. And we had hoped that we would reach 700 billion worth of trade by the end of 2020. Well, we passed that mark in November 2019. And so I mentioned the work that we're doing in Kulburi. We know that small and medium-sized businesses are going to drive the economies of our countries, but we also know that the impact of COVID and the impact of the climate crisis means that those small and medium-sized businesses will be the most disadvantaged. And therefore, we have to look at how we amend and adapt the legal systems that we have now to give those businesses a break, but also how do we re-stimulate? And so we've been looking right across the Commonwealth. And of course, we've looked at what India has done in order to address the needs of those most disadvantaged. And you know that India has introduced the zero bank accounts. They've also put 10% of all the aid that they are giving into the hands of ordinary people. So not only have they produced and using these zero bank accounts, but they've also got the individual identifier and they've got mobile connectivity. So they're sending the money directly to those in need through the mobile. And so we are looking, when I talk about the ICT and the digitalization and fintech, all of these areas are areas which I believe will be particularly helpful for small member states, because we have to enable them to get back on their feet. But that brings me then to the whole idea of vulnerability. The Commonwealth has been pursuing with vigor the concept that we need now a universal index for vulnerability. We can no longer be simply dependent on using GP, the gross national product, as the arbiter of whether we give aid or we do not give aid. Because if you look at what's happened to many of our member states, when they're hit by a climate crisis, that hurricane does not care, the cyclone doesn't care, whether before it hits you, you were rich, you were middle income, or you were poor. I saw it in my own country of birth, Dominica, in 2017, when Maria hit us, we were a middle income country. By the time she left 6 hours later, Dominica had lost 226% of her GDP. So that gross domestic product was fine, but it was gone. So we are looking at the practical things that we can do together, whether it's economic, climate change, legislative, to give a holistic support mechanism. And I certainly think that this is the time where the Commonwealth can make a real contribution.
Thank you very much. Now, Madam Secretary General, many people, many scholars, including our viewers today, argue that countries that are led by women are relatively a lot more successful in dealing with the pandemic. Now, you yourself are the first woman to hold your leadership position, your office as the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. So what is your personal impetus behind the leadership strategy, not only during the COVID crisis, but for what follows? That is questions of fair distribution of vaccine, economic and aid cutbacks, and the worsening humanitarian situation.
Well, I think, firstly, I need to say I'm a lawyer, so I like to look at evidence. And I think the analysis that people have made is how well a number of our member states have done. So, for example, we are celebrating the enormous contribution made by Prime Minister Mia Mottley in the Caribbean, and the Caribbean has managed the COVID pandemic extraordinarily well. They've also highlighted the work that has been done by the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, and other women who have made huge contributions. But I think that what I have tried to do, if you want to see the work that we've done, is once again to look at the evidence. But also, I think what has made the difference is we really have tried to listen to our member states. listen to their needs, listen to what they have, identify the gaps, and then put together a responsive, holistic plan which responds to the needs that they have identified. So if you look at all the things we've done, whether it's been the creating of the Commonwealth Response Centre, it was created to respond to the identified needs that we were getting told needed to be addressed. The work we're doing on fintech, the work we're doing on disaster response mechanisms, the work that we have done in relation to the Climate Finance Access Hub, the concentration on the young people who are 60% of our Commonwealth of 2.4 billion people, the impetus that we have focused on innovation, I think I would say being responsive and agile and looking forward, and to try and create the instruments that we will need, not just for today, but those we will need to tomorrow. But maintaining a multilateral approach, because you know, it's been very sad that before this pandemic hit, there was a lot of discussion about whether multilateralism was dead and whether we needed to work together and to cooperate. What has this pandemic taught us? It's taught us that my health and the health of those I love is absolutely dependent on your health and the health of those you love. And that this pandemic knows no class, no race, no country. And that the only way that we can fight it is by fighting it together. And so the things that have worked, the things you've seen that have been taking steps forward to make a real difference has been the collaboration, the partnership. And that is frankly why I am so proud of what our Commonwealth is doing. I'm so proud of the magnificent statement that was made by our Commonwealth health ministers. They weren't talking about what they were going to do on their own. They were committing to work together and to continue to work together, to share everything they knew, to share everything that worked, but also, just as importantly, to share everything that did not work. So that if we, any of us, spend a penny, a dollar, a pound, a rupee, no other member of our family would have to spend the same dollar, pound, or rupee. No member of our family would have to make the same mistake. Because let's just be really clear, none of us saw this pandemic coming. COVID is a wicked disease, and every day we discover more and more about it. And every day we have to pool that knowledge together so we are better able to fight it. And so if you look at what's happened with the discoveries that we're making, the fact that Ghana has identified the genome of COVID, that Nigeria's scientists are coming forward, the UK, Canada, Australia, the Caribbean, UAE, all of these innovations, and India, which is the greatest producer of generic medicines, and that we now have this platform created together by the Commonwealth to share our data, to be able to get the right medication, the right equipment, the right answers into the hands of our clinicians. I think that's what's driving us: partnership, multilateralism. And actually look at what we're doing today between the Ramphal Institute and yourselves. We're bringing together a partnership to try and be the difference that we now need to make in order to help our world to survive. I'm proud of that, and I think that's probably consistent with female leadership.
Thank you very much for that. And indeed, institutions of the Commonwealth and its entire associate and affiliate bodies have been commendable in the pandemic, just as they have been in the past in the general context of the world. And since the institutionalization of the modern Commonwealth, there have been several declarations that you yourself touched upon in your keynote, which have been very instrumental in shaping the international order. However, there are still critics who argue that these standards and values are more aspirational than anything else. And how do we respond to these, especially when the arguments stand that several enforcement measures like the Commonwealth Ministerial Action Group lack the teeth required for effective action or the political will to do so?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that, as you know, the Commonwealth is a group of nations, independent, sovereign nations, who come together, joined by common values and goodwill, not bound by treaty, but bound by common purpose. And that is a very powerful element. And what we have done, certainly in the last 4 years, is concentrate on implementation, putting the tools into the hands of our member states, not just to aspire to delivering the SDGs, but actually to make that difference. So if you go onto our innovation hub, which is on our website, which is thecommonwealth.org, you will see that we are now putting into the hands of our member states the sort of data that they will need in order to make properly informed decisions. You'll also be able to monitor how we have worked with our member states and with them have been able to implement change and support the value systems that we have all committed to. And this has already made a huge difference. So we have made a 3-year report, which is also going to be on our website, and you'll see not just aspirations, but the concrete evidence of the changes that have been brought about by that collaboration, by that community of experts and countries and civil society groups working together, because the Commonwealth isn't just the Commonwealth Secretariat. The Commonwealth has at least 89 accredited organizations, and we have been working collaboratively between the networks of networks as networks, which Patsy referred to in her remarks right at the very beginning. So I think the truth is one has to look at the evidence, and the evidence is profound and inescapable that working together, our Commonwealth has made a significant difference. And the instruments that we have, we wield not with a club, but probably with a scalpel. And sometimes it is easier to talk quietly and trenchantly to a friend in order to help them to see how things might be capable of being changed beneficially. And that is something the Commonwealth has historically been extremely good at. We did not get climate change agreement because we were silent. If you look at what the Commonwealth has done from 1989 to 2015, it was the Commonwealth family in Malta in 2015, before the Paris Agreement, who said, we need enforceability of any agreement that we enter into in Paris. We need a 2 degrees commitment, enforceable commitment, and we need a 1.5 degree aspirational target. It was the Commonwealth who walked that road. What happened in Paris? We had enforceability, 2 degrees, and a 1.5 aspirational target. If you look back and say, who was instrumental in promoting HIPC? It was the Commonwealth. Who was the first to talk about debt swaps? It was the Commonwealth. Who were the first to say that we now need to think about the vulnerability index, the first vulnerability index? It was the Commonwealth. Who created the idea of small, independent, developing states needing a special role? It was the Commonwealth. Who is now looking at the connectivity agenda to make sure that digital divide is breached and so nobody is left behind? It was the Commonwealth. Who created the Blue Charter to give voice and implementation strategies to turn aspiration into action? It has been the Commonwealth. Who will now send out the call for living lands? Still the Commonwealth. All of those listening who are interested in evidence, look at that evidence and then perhaps say, how effective are we? Have we made a difference? And are we needed in the future? My answer is clear, based on the independent evidence that we have. And that's why I say, on that evidence, we have never needed the 54 countries collaboration more. We have big ones, small ones, rich ones, poor ones, island states, landlocked states, rich states, poor states. We have every race, every religion, every type of ecological situation. And together, we, the Commonwealth states, are the petri dish in which I hope we will grow the solutions for the 21st century and the 22nd. So I believe that that is the gift that the Commonwealth can give the world. All of the rest of the 2/3 can look at somebody within our family and say, they look like me. And so if we can craft a pathway for the 54, just as we've done in the past, we can craft a pathway that others in the rest of the world may feel safe enough to travel on. So I think it is a full answer if people just want to look and see what the Commonwealth and our little family of 53 have managed to achieve.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary General, for that real challenge to skeptics and critics. And on that note, I have a final brief question for you. The Commonwealth has seen the membership of countries like Rwanda and Mozambique that don't have explicit historical ties to the Commonwealth. And this membership seems to be expanding. Within the capacity of your office, do you see a vision for an expanded, more universal membership of the Commonwealth? And what could potentially be the perils of this on this historically linked institution? Thank you.
Well, I think the most important thing is the members of the Commonwealth family have within their hands the capacity to decide who and when a country will be permitted to join them. Also, we now have the Commonwealth Charter, which is the embodiment of the values and aspirations that all the 54 member states aspire to achieve. And before anyone can join our family, or if they have left, rejoin their family, there is a process now that every country has to go through, where we are able to examine whether those countries do aspire to attain the values and aspirations that are shared in that Commonwealth Charter, which was signed in Marlborough House in 2013. And if you look at our charter, the 16 elements of the charter are absolutely mirrored in the Sustainable Development Goals, which was entered into by the United Nations 2 years later in 2015. So if you look at those countries who were asked and the individuals who were asked to create the Sustainable Development Goals, I can't help smiling because the majority of those people came from our Commonwealth countries. And our Commonwealth Charter took 2 years 3 months and 11 days for our 53 then countries to agree. And so therefore, we created a pathway. So I am very sure that that pathway is a secure one for all of us going forward.
Thank you.
Right. So thank you, Baroness Scotland, sorry, Secretary General, and thank you, Neha, as well. I'd like to bring in Patsy, who wants to give a thank you message to Baroness Scotland.
Thank you, Uday. I want to give a very special message to the Secretary General. I think everybody will agree with me that she has given us an extraordinarily detailed report on the activities which the Secretariat and the Commonwealth as a whole, they have been undertaking to change the way we live our lives in the 21st century. Now, a lot of that goes unreported, but we now have this opportunity of listening to her, of being amazed at the depth and the width of the activities, the relationships, the bringing in men, women, young people, energizing them to do things for each other, to help to change the way, and to help to change the way the world is run. As somebody who worked for years at the UN and elsewhere about the whole question of women's rights, I am personally delighted that the Secretariat is pushing the whole question about domestic abuse. That was not something that was ever much on the international agenda. It's been very much a national thing. But I know time is of the essence. But I want to pledge to her that the Rumphel Institute will continue to work very closely, will continue to spread the word of the new initiatives of the Secretariat, and to bring to the attention of, in particular, our latest big project, which I have to remind the Secretary General that we're already working with her staff and the Turin Institute, the whole question of toxic air. It is a big problem. Most of the toxic cities in the world are in the Commonwealth. I know, I got the feeling when she was speaking that how could she manage so much? And I felt rather guilty to remind her that the air we breathe in is the most important aspect of our lives. If we don't have clean air, we might as well not think we can have useful and fruitful lives. And so that I hope that the Secretariat will reach out and will, through the various organizations, try to get cities in the Commonwealth to become cleaner, and also to use her great influence in joining the fight to make toxic air a human right. Secretary General, I hope you don't mind my doing a little bit of giving you information about my own organization. I know you're well aware of what we do. I think people in the world will get some idea that if we're associated with the Secretariat, we must be doing good things for humanity. So once again, thank you for that extraordinarily incredible, detailed, and heartwarming and uplifting statement which you made to us today. We are deeply honored, and thank you.
Thank you. I think I should just tell you, Patsy, that the only reason I didn't mention those issues was because of time. But we do have our Common Earth initiative, which is absolutely going to focus on things like the atmosphere and the living. So
yes.
Please go and have a look at that. And also know and look at our Common Sensing project, because I think it'll make you smile.
Yes, good, excellent. Well, Thank you again.
Thank you, Secretary General. And thank you, Patsy, for your message. Just on one point where you were mentioning about female leadership, women leadership, I think that's the reason our launch has been going very well as well today, because it's been led by you and then supported by two other women. So we have 75% women representation here in this particular meeting. That is, it goes in with the motto of GPI as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So
Thank
we,
you,
yeah,
Uday.
we have reached the end of this inaugural session. A very big thank you to Baroness Scotland for making time
Indeed.
in these extremely busy circumstances. Her invaluable message and extraordinary efforts that she's putting towards optimizing these networks and opportunities for the 21st century. A special thanks to her team, who also have been very helpful in organizing logistics and for a timely coordination. I'm very grateful to our partners in this e-series, the Ramphel Institute, Patsy Robertson, David Gomez, and the entire team whose support's been crucial to this. I'm also thankful to my own team at GPI, Neha Diwan, Aditi, and a few others who've been very helpful. Well, the end of Inaugural is in fact the beginning of the e-series. This e-series will be a series of webinars and e-symposiums with leaders from politics, diplomacy, academia, and international organizations. So if any of the viewers, either here or in YouTube, if anyone of you are interested to attend any future events, write to us on ukcw@globalpolicyinsights.org, or follow us on our Facebook page or on Twitter at the rate Global Policy In. GPI is also conducting series of events on artificial intelligence and public policy, the first one being on 29th, Friday at 11 a.m. London time. If you're interested, again, follow us on Facebook page and write to us. We're also doing series of events on COVID-19, international political economy, environment, which can also be found on our social media handles. I once again thank Baroness Scotland and everyone else. I can see we have diplomats from India, we have diplomats from Sri Lanka, we have from everywhere across the Commonwealth. I can see that they've logged on, and I thank you all for attending and have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.